Good evening and welcome to Frankly Speaking. I'm Joe Spina and
I'm Paul Crowley. Welcome back, Joe.
We're back.
Isn't this great?
Popular demand.
Yeah.
Can't keep a good team down.
Well, I'll tell you something before you get. I know where you're going, but before you get there, I just want to say that I am thrilled to be back. It's been well over a year since we've been on the show, and
40 pounds later.
Speaking together, you
we
gained 40, I lost 40. You know, well, it's all good.
Oh, well, you balance off.
Yeah. So anyway, what do we have for our audience tonight?
Wow, listen to this one. Truth is our mission. Reality our realm. Said as we see it, and frankly as well. You like that?
They do. It kind of fits right in with that whole frankly speaking thing.
So listen, I mean, folks, we're going to be on, Paul, help me out with this because, what is it, every Wednesday from 7 to 8 and?
Friday from, is it 8 to 9? Or is it?
I believe so, yeah.
Oh, no, 9 to 10.
And we're certainly going to welcome input. How do they folks out there, let us know how bad we're doing?
You can go on to LCTV's Facebook page and you can issue comments. You can do it when you're watching the show. You can do it at any time, and hopefully your comments, any comments you have, will get back to us, and we'll try to respond to them, at least in the early stages, until we get to a point where we're much more. We have the technology so that we can go back to the live call-in show that we had before.
So they can enlighten us, the audience.
Yes.
Now, we're supposed to be an opinion makers, and folks are supposed to call us and say we listen. Now, you can listen. I don't listen that well because my ears don't work that well. So write us. That's what I like.
Yeah, right.
That's the best way
we look to have many methods of communication. Whether it's Facebook, you can. I think we'll be able to text. If you look in the Lynn item, today's item, or actually yesterday or last week, there's an ad on the second page. Frankly speaking, and it will cue you to some of the sites that you can go and the ways in which you can communicate with us.
Let's get right to it, Paul.
Yep.
Little caption here. Welcome to the party. Now.
What party is that?
That's the interesting thing. Now, let me define political party for the audience, and let's play around with it a little bit. The political party is defined as an organized group of people with at least, notice that at least, similar political aims and opinions that seeks to influence public policy by getting its candidates elected to public office. I don't think it works anymore.
No.
Paul, you're unenrolled, is that correct?
I'm unenrolled, that's right.
And that's anathema in the city of Lynn.
No, I would say that there's a greater population of unenrolled in the city of Lynn than you might think.
But the Democratic Party controls the city of Lynn.
I'll tell you one thing.
Even though it's supposed to be nonpartisan.
I'll tell you one thing. If you're not a Democrat, you don't get supported by the Democrats. That's the way it works.
What about if you're a Republican, as I had been?
You definitely won't get supported by the Democrats.
Real deep trouble, correct?
Right. But they still watch the show.
Well, I tend to think that the parties have really realigned. I mean, those folks, for example, if you look at the African American community that votes overwhelmingly for the Democratic candidate, irrespective of who it may be.
Yeah.
When in fact, it was Abraham Lincoln, the father of the Republican Party, who had the most to do with emancipating.
Right.
And it were the radical Republicans who fought against the Jim Crow Democrats, the Dixiecrats, right? And throughout history, if you look at it, it's ironic, it was the Republican, including, and I'm not a fan of Mitt Romney's, but his father, who when he was governor of Michigan, was very active. It was the Republicans to pass the Civil Rights Act.
Well, and back in the 50s, under the Eisenhower administration, Republican administration, by the way, with LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, was the president of the Senate at the time.
That's right.
Democrat.
Yeah.
And when Eisenhower wanted to pass civil rights legislation, he single-handedly blocked it.
Of course.
And the reason he blocked it, in the final analysis, when you look back, was because he didn't want the Republicans to get credit for it. So he waited till 65 when they were in power and they were able to do it. So he becomes, along with
the hero?
Ted Kennedy, the heroes of this. And basically, they were passing Republican legislation.
And it was actually Eisenhower who sent the troops into Little Rock, Arkansas, ironically, right? Brown versus the Board of Education, which integrated the school systems. down there.
Right.
So it's strange the way
Right.
perception and reality, and I see this political season is fascinating to me. Hillary Clinton had made $21 million in the last 2 years, speaking to bankers, Goldman Sachs. Right?
She didn't produce a thing.
Wait a second.
She didn't produce a thing.
Over and above that, she grabbed $225K for an hour's yicky yak. That's minimum. She went up to $500K,
Yeah.
which is more than the average person makes in 4 years to 8 years.
Right.
Average family.
Right.
How can
She makes that in less than an hour.
How can that individual have any empathy for the working man? Now,
She doesn't.
put that hat up that I brought. Someone gave me a hat, folks, and don't jump out of your seats now. This hat says, what's it say? And there's a reason we're going to show it. What's it say? Yeah, don't go bonkers.
I'm the
This is
model.
not an endorsement.
No endorsement
Right.
there, but here we go.
It says, now, why did I bring that hat, Paul? Folks, watch this. This is talking about hypocrisy. Take that hat off for a second. Make America great again, huh?
Yeah.
Where was that hat made?
Made in China.
Is that something?
Yeah, and that's his big thing is we got to stop. We got to.
Oh, yeah. $500 billion,
Yeah.
trade deficit with, they're ripping us off,
Right.
So that's why I'm not so sure anymore about these political parties, or that I can align myself with them.
Right.
It's upside down. However, there is a third party, a legitimate party that's on 50 states. You know what that is? The Libertarian Party.
The Libertarian Party. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I think there's somebody calling into the
I
show
think so.
already.
I thought I shut this thing off. Of course, my daughter has to call me, and I'm putting it back.
All right. Beautiful.
Yeah. So the Libertarian Party,
All 50 states.
for all 50 states, so they get on there, and the
Yeah.
former governor of New Mexico,
And the former governor of Massachusetts,
otherwise known as,
Willie Weld.
as the vice presidential.
I met him about a year and a half ago. What a great guy he is. I mean, he's just such an affable. You were with me when I
Yeah.
met him.
And you were here? Yeah, that's right. We met him in Boston when the
Yeah.
Charlie Baker affair, right? Now here's the funny feature. If you listen to Johnson, the former governor of New Mexico, and William Weld, here's what they say: we want to keep government out of our pocketbooks, and we want to keep them out of our bedroom. Probably, I don't have a problem with that.
Neither do I. In fact,
I think that's
in fact, I
probably the
love that
sanest
idea.
place to go,
Right.
right? Conservative on the fiscal issues.
And moderate on the social.
Exactly. And more importantly, government get out of my business regardless. Less government, less intrusive.
Right.
Both of the other folks, be it Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump,
Are gonna tilt towards bigger government. Well, we've talked about this before, Joe, and certainly not on the air, but it's a big part of the issues that face us today is that government, just like a business or just like an individual, somebody going to school, everybody needs to grow, right? Grow. That's the natural tendency of all entities is to grow. So what is the federal government going to do? They want to grow 3%, 5%, 7%. What's the in this country? Where would you say is the greatest growth, regional growth in this country right now?
oh, I'd say the Southeast.
How about Washington D.C.?
Oh, very good. You're right.
Yeah.
And that's
It's unbelievable how much growth there is down
Fairfax County, they call it.
Yep.
Right. And of course, who does Fairfax County vote for? That's how Terry McAuliffe, the governor, got in there.
there. Well, if you recall, during the primary, it was really the only place where John Kasich did well, other than his home state, was in and around Washington D.C. and Virginia,
Of course, because he was in Congress for 25 years.
because he was a big government,
Of course.
even though he's a Republican.
Listen, I got an email today. Folks, this is unbelievable. From Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan. And what he's saying in effect is we cannot afford another 4 years of Barack Obama. That's the opening line. But he isn't looking for money for the presumptive nominee of the Republican Party. He's looking for money for the House of Representatives. Not even for the Senate, for the House of Representatives. I find that offensive. If you're the Speaker of the House and you have a presumptive nominee, he's playing games. He's got to get behind him if he believes in what he believes in. Now, the only reason why I may, that's not positive, vote for the builder from New York, I will not mention his name, you guess it,
The builder
is
from New York.
because
Who could that be?
I'm concerned.
Bernie Sanders?
I actually like Bernie Sanders, to be honest with you.
I do too.
I think he's economically
The fact
completely off the
fact that
reservation.
he is the poorest of all the senators tells
That
you
makes
a
me,
lot.
yeah, that's true. But his economic philosophy is so bad.
Right.
I mean, it's never worked anywhere, and it's against human nature.
Look what's going on in
Socialism,
Venezuela.
folks, is not very good if you really analyze
Right.
it. And by the way, we'll get into that later on the diversity.
A lot of people don't fully understand what socialism is, and we
Of
ought
course.
to have at least a segment some point in the future on what socialism is, so people can truly understand what, in fact, is his theories on how to run a country.
Tell me, Mr. Crowley, what is the most significant issue, in your view, of this presidential election?
The Supreme Court.
Thank you very much. 4 justices, perhaps.
Well, justice is blind. They say, right? They got that.
They're there for life.
Right, but the whole symbol of justice being blind is the woman with the
Oh, really?
right.
Yeah, supposedly.
But here's the thing: all 8 justices.
Yeah.
Well, I would say, for the most part, all 8 justices aren't arbiters. They're not objective arbiters of whatever the case is. 4 of them are heavily left, and 4 of them are heavily right.
Well, I don't know about heavily right. I'd say marginally right, because certainly John Roberts took a Dixie when it came to Obamacare,
right.
and Kennedy, you got to figure out which way the wind is blowing with him.
Right.
So I'm not so sure.
But
it's hard
on
and
the
right.
left, they are guaranteed to vote with the left party or the Democrat
But
party.
they're not. But they're not supposed to legislate, Paul, and that's the
right.
problem. And they're going to be setting policy for 100 years if they're there, long beyond.
So the only important thing to understand is that you can't let the liberals control the Supreme Court.
That would be the destruction, in effect, of the Constitution and our way of life. I mean, it's that simple.
Open borders forever.
Forever.
Globalization, lack of sovereignty, all those things would just
Gone.
be gone.
So, and folks, you better realize that, because that's it. So that makes me, I give Trump a lot of credit for coming out with those 11 justices that he came up front and he said, look,
Yeah.
this is what I'm going to appoint. Okay?
And the conservatives all like them,
Yeah.
and the liberals all hate them.
Yeah.
Good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But from my perspective, the best interest of our country to be able to survive, because you can't have a reservoir that everybody's draining the water from and it never rains.
Well, what
you
is-
don't have the Ipswich River filling it. You get what I mean? That's what happens. You can't just consume. Paulie, we went from and by the way, Bush was a contributor, so you folks understand.
Yeah.
We went
he
from
made
an $8 or $9 trillion deficit when Bush left office. This guy, Obama, more than doubled it in 8 years. It's up approaching $20 trillion.
And at the time, Bush had doubled it from when he took over.
Of course he did. Compassionate conservatism.
Right.
There's nothing compassionate about bankrupting a country.
And the fact of the matter is, George Bush and the whole Bush clan, or the people behind the Bushes, they're really not conservative.
By the way, I noticed something in my research. This is fascinating, folks. The Clinton Global Foundation, whatever they call it, right?
Yep.
Was part of the genesis was Katrina, and at that same time, Bush Sr. did a foundation from Houston called the Houston Foundation, which is where he's from, and both of them kind of got married. They got all kinds of money for Katrina, and then thereafter to Haiti. That's the nexus. This is the royalty that's taken place in our country. This privilege.
Well,
I'm sick of the Bushes and I'm sick of the Clintons, to be honest with you.
Before Donald Trump emerged, right? Before, he was on the fence. I wasn't sure he was going to run. I'm not going to run. Couldn't make up his mind. The presumptive nominees for both parties was Clinton and Bush. And, you know, and Clinton and Bush ran against each other in 92?
Yeah, but they were buddies. He was
Right.
the prodigal son.
Right.
You know what George the Younger said when asked about the upcoming, presidential? He said, "You mean my sister-in-law or my brother?"
Right.
I mean, that's how they looked at Bill Clinton as being part of the family.
Right. And that's the thing about the Republicans and the Democrats. They both want to grow business. They grow government. They just do it kind of in a different way. And they're actually both fine with either party being in power.
Yeah, because they're in power. Heads out.
Donald Trump, different story.
They can't stand him. He wants to break up
Because he basically breaks up their cartel.
their ball game.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why they hate him.
That's the only good thing about Donald Trump, in my view. That's
Yeah,
a very big
well,
thing.
No, I think there's a couple of other things, and I have my reservations. But he's created wealth,
He did.
so there's something tangible. He's created wealth, which we all benefit from. Bigger pie,
Right. Well, what about
and his kids.
What about the $21 million that Hillary Clinton made? What
Wow.
kind of? I mean, she created wealth by doing that, right?
No, she's a
She
vampire.
created her own wealth.
No,
Yeah.
no, not at all.
By the way, most of every dime that she received from the $21 million was essentially paid by virtue. If it was a school, they increased tuition to do it. If it was a big pharma company, they increased the cost of the prescriptions to do it. If it was Wall Street, they increased their fees to the small person to cover the. So basically, all the people that she claims to be protecting paid that $21 million in one way or another.
Let me say this to you. There was a group, it was called the London Foundation, originally a Swedish company that ended up settling out there in Vancouver, British Columbia. They're into minerals, oil, principally in Africa, third world countries. How much do you think they pledged to the Clinton Foundation?
You know, I really don't know, but I would say $500,000, something like that.
How about 100 million?
$100 million.
Fair.
And what was the quid pro quo? Because
Well,
they
one-
don't-
one- one- you
because
want me
the
to tell you
Clintons
one of the
Clintons
That's
don't
true.
give you anything unless they get something in return.
Well, you want me to tell, and by the way, this was just prior to her becoming Secretary of State. This is after Obama had won, and he's touring, because don't forget, she became Secretary of State in 2009. Is that correct?
So for 4 years, she was able to really leverage her role as a Secretary of State and potentially the future president to really build up on that.
That's why they're
Clinton
going after
global-
McAuliffe now, because he was the, I don't want to use the term,
conduit of sorts, right?
the conduit, very
Yeah,
good,
yeah.
between all of these different,
Yeah.
between the foundation,
Right.
because he was on the board of directors of the foundation, plus he was the Democratic chair. But there was a fellow named Frank, I think his name was Gutra, but I'm not quite sure, it's a Canadian. And he was also involved with this transaction. The United States of America, folks, under this little ball game that they were playing, is less 20% of its nuclear reserves that are now controlled
The uranium,
by
right?
Russia.
Yeah. Secretary Clinton, in exchange for what it appears to be in exchange for favors by virtue of contributions to the Clinton Global Initiative, had the State Department approve the sale of 20% of the United States uranium reserves to Russia. And for all you folks at home that prefer to watch ABC, NBC, and CBS, I'm not sure you've heard much about this, but
Oh.
it's a real fact. This isn't, remember, Joe, we're talking truth here. Reality is our realm, and we talk truth. These are things that happen and just don't get reported in the mainstream media.
And it pains me to have to bring up some of these things because I would rather have it. This part of the party things. I'm getting parties are
So
dangerous.
what do you think would happen if who was the Secretary of State under George W. Bush?
Would have never happened.
If
If
he did that, if he
God.
sold 20% of the United States uranium reserves to Russia in 2006, let's say, how would the mainstream media have reacted to
treason.
that? Yep.
Diversity run amok. So diversity is defined, once again, folks, a little definition here. Diversity in broad terms is defined as any dimension that can be used to differentiate groups and people from one another. It means respect for, appreciation of differences in ethnicity, gender, age, national origin, disability, sexual orientation, education, and religion.
How come not opinion?
That's the big exception, but not of thought.
Right.
So in our universities today, and I just went to a graduation, was unheard of. Is that phone ringing again?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
In any case,
Somebody calling in.
yeah, I keep trying to turn it off, and it's the same person, and I keep trying to turn it off. They never learn, do they? So in the universities, there is no opinion diversity, is there?
No, in fact, if you, as a conservative, or me of conservative persuasion, were to say anything of a conservative opinion on a campus, then all of the students would be screaming, "We need safe zones where we can go where nobody can say."
So they
these
create
things."
this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Condoleezza Rice, intelligent, minority, woman, former Secretary of State, disinvited to Rutgers. You want me to go down the list of the disinvited? Every single one of them
Right.
come from, because they didn't want to hear what they had to say.
And that all by itself is probably the single biggest concern that I have with the way this country is going, because as soon as our opinions are no longer allowed, our rights are gone.
There's also no cultural diversity in real terms. Meaning that if you happen to be from a culture and you want to celebrate your culture, that's frowned upon. You know, they say it isn't, but it is.
If you're in the inside group, if you've been here for 200 years, that's the way it is. If you're relatively new to this country, it's the opposite.
And then let's tie this, because there's a nexus here between diversity and political correctness.
There is,
Agree?
yeah, I agree.
So political correctness is almost bringing this nation and our culture to the brink of insanity. And insanity has a definition, Paul, and you're very adept at this.
Right. That's, that premise that if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect a different result.
Doesn't happen,
right.
does it? So you got to be insane to go down the same road over and over again into the pit. But we tend to do that. Now, defined political correctness is the avoidance, mind you, of avoidance, which is also negative, isn't it? The avoidance, often considered as taken to extremes, of forms of expression and actions that are perceived, and I underline that, perceived to exclude, marginalized, or insult groups of people who are socially disadvantaged or discriminated against. But it's a perception.
See, when I read that definition,
Yeah.
that to me is a definition written by somebody who's in charge of political correctness.
Thank you.
It's not, that definition is not a true definition of what political
But
correctness
political
means.
correctness uses that in order to do ad hominem
Right.
attacks. In other words, Paul, you're a racist. You know why you're a racist? Because you're white.
Right. Right.
Or you're a homophobe. You know why? Because you're married. There's an insanity to that.
Right.
So what they've done is they've taken people and they label them as misogynists, which, by the way, is there an equal situation for male to female? I mean, male to female is misogynist, right? Female to male, is there an equivalent term?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
It's kind of a pecking order thing.
And they come up with a new one now, racism, right? How about xenophobia? Fear of foreigners.
Yeah, and probably the one that irritates me the most is this new white guilt thing that they're throwing out there.
Are you guilt? Do you feel guilt?
No, I refuse. I refuse to go down that path.
And by the way, folks, io parlo italiano. So I'm an immigrant from an immigrant background. So what bothers me is when you get people talking about anti-immigrant. You know, no one that I know of is anti-immigrant per se, unless something's wrong with you.
Not even a guy
Because
like
we're
Donald
all
Trump.
immigrants. What they're opposed to is illegal immigration, correct?
Right.
All right. Now, my parents, when they came to this country, had to stop at Ellis Island. They wouldn't let them come into the country until we were given a physical exam, and they had to be vaccinated.
Inoculated, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Today, we have unintended consequences of illegal immigration is we have a rash of diseases which were not or had been fairly much eradicated. That's the unwritten problem that nobody talks about. Zika. You know that little mosquito?
Yep.
By the way, you know what mosquito means?
No, yeah.
Pedro. He knows what it means because Pedro can speak Spanish, no? It means little fly. Our producer director, he's the best, isn't he, Pedro Diaz? It means little fly. He told me, I didn't know what it meant.
Yeah.
Mosquito, yeah, little fly. Now this little fly, this is a classic now. Do you know this? This is unbelievable. Folks, I never knew this. The only mosquito that bites is the female.
Yes.
Male mosquitoes don't bite. Did you know that?
Yes.
You did?
Yes.
Smarter than I am. You know the life expectancy of a mosquito?
I got it right in Trivial Pursuit one time, I think.
Huh?
Nothing.
What are you doing this for? The male mosquito lives about 10 days. The female mosquito, 2 months.
It's not a bad 10 days, though, I bet.
I guess. I don't know. So, but this is a very serious disease, and the reason why they call it Zika is from the region in Uganda where it originated from. So its natural habitat is tropical rainforests or jungle. So you would find Zika, which moved from the Congo and Uganda to the Amazon, and currently the United States, the greatest problem would be in Puerto Rico, which has a climate which is conducive to mosquitoes. But we up here, up in the north, we're lucky because once the temperature goes below 50, they go take a hike.
Right.
They like it at 80. But here's the problem. Folks, you have to understand, and this is important for you to know, you get a rash, check it out, right? Red eyes, I never knew about red eyes. Fever, red eyes, or rash, joint pain. Where's it especially bad, Paul? I mean, this is the tragedy of Zika.
For pregnant women?
Exactly.
Right.
And it does dastardly things to the developing fetus, yeah. Particularly attacks the brain. And the kids are born with all
Small
types
heads,
of problems.
Yeah.
And that's sad.
No, it really is. And, you know, you talk about the fact that as a society, the United States has eradicated a lot of illnesses over the years, you know, smallpox and so forth, you know, malaria and all these things. The prospect of that being reversed because of the unfettered access to this is a serious problem, along with some other things. You know, for example, and you've told me that you brought this to my attention, and it's so true, and that is when you have a society that has a very open border in a very open welfare state, it will attract more and more people into the society. And at a time when we as a society are having a hard enough time paying for what we have now, adding all more people to the equation, it just makes it harder for us to deliver for the people that are here already.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought me back to that. And the point I was going to try to make is, having come from an immigrant background, my ethnicity was shut off after World War I. You couldn't get into this country under any conditions, because they recognized, and not just mine, but others, they recognized that it had reached a saturation point and that the country had to absorb and integrate and acclimate before it could open up again.
And that's what you were telling me before. You were basically saying that the solution to our immigration issues is to stop the inflow of immigrations so we can absorb the people that are here. And what, Donald Trump may want to deport all of them, but maybe some of them, the ones that don't belong here, that we shouldn't have here because of their criminal records and so forth, and absorb the people who...
But that's a small number. See, the truth of the matter is, nobody is going to send back 10, 12, 13, 14 million people. That's the truth of the matter. It's impractical, and you could argue it's immoral.
But the other thing is, and I know that self-deporting was a kind of a joke in the
Romney
Romney
thing. Terms,
But
he's a joke now.
But
for sure.
The fact of the matter is that if people decide that it's better back home than it is here, they will leave on their own, right? I mean, I don't think it's truly a self-deportation, but it helps the situation, right? If people leave.
There's a reality is the people who screwed up were not the folks that are here. The people who screwed up was our leaders. Our leaders are the ones that created the situation, okay?
Absolutely.
Because they allowed it to happen. All right, so now that it's happened, what do you do? Well, it's very simple in real terms. One is you say, that's it. Nobody's coming into this country now for 5 years, 10 years, whatever time it takes to absorb what you have here. That's a fair, it's ecumenical across the world. Secondly, you do what Donald Trump says. This is where he's right. You build a wall. Now, the wall may be metaphoric. It may be a symbol, but it matters. It's tangible.
Right.
Okay? And it sends the right message. So then we can work from there. Listen, I see a lot of young folks who come from Central America. I see their parents who are hard workers every day,
Yep, sure.
doing the work that nobody else wants to do. That's to be admired. Okay? So I think that we ought to talk. That's a discussion that has to be made. Reasonable people can come to the right conclusion. By the way, I want to compliment the Lynn Public School System for doing such a great job with immigrants throughout its history. That's the beauty of this Lynn school system. You're a charter member of the association down at Tech.
I'm a product of the Lynn
And you're a
School
product
System.
of Tech,
Yeah.
and Tech has done some really nice things for the students in the city of Lynn who may not be overly academic, but have become really, really useful in society and doing things I can't do, like put a nail on the wall.
About 7 or 8 years ago, Tech was in a downward spiral, and it has completely reversed itself, and it's very positive things going on
Absolutely.
at the school now. Yep, very positive.
And I must give, and not, look, for all full disclosure, I'm a retired teacher. I tutor, I substitute.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for full disclosure. And I'm a fan of the Lynn Public School System for what it did for my brothers, my sisters, and myself as immigrants, and what it continues to do. And, we all have to make our mistakes. One of the things that makes me laugh like heck is I went to the new Thurgood Marshall Middle School. And I wasn't that fond of the design or anything, but it was a pleasant experience. I was pleasantly surprised and happy. So I pull in a parking lot. Now, Paul, I hate to tell you, but junior high school kids don't have cars. They're not of age, right?
Right.
So I see, I'm going to park my car, I see this, handicap parking, which there are always more than there should be,
Right.
because there aren't that many. And
But closest to the door.
right, and that's
easy
fine.
access, yep.
That's fine, but there just aren't that many handicap teachers, okay? But I understand it for possibly parents, and stuff
Yep.
like that. So let that go. Right next to there is another sign, a classic.
What does it say?
I call it Prius privilege.
Prius privilege. Oh, so now you can park in not where the handicap, but very close to where the handicap
Right
is.
next to them.
If you're driving a Prius.
Yeah.
So
Or an electric car or a hybrid, yeah.
so is it because they're driving a Prius, or is it because they support Elizabeth Warren? Or
Good
both?
point.
Because
Bernie
have
Sanders?
you ever seen a Prius without an Elizabeth Warren sticker on it?
No, never. It's like one goes with the other, like tuna fish and chips,
Right.
chips and tuna fish.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is crazy. So, I don't know. Reserved hybrid and low emission vehicles come to me. Is this insanity, or is this mindset gone amok? This is the intrusion of government too far down the road. The other thing I noticed, although I kind of was a fan of it, is all exit signs used to be red. They're now green. I don't know why, but it was pleasant.
The exit signs are green.
All of them green. Pleasant green, by the way.
A pleasant green.
Soothing.
But isn't that
Huh?
isn't that like racially biased? It's like an Irish color or something, and they
Ooh,
shouldn't be.
Paul, you're being bad now. Politically correct, though. I don't know if it is or it isn't. So that was just part of my casual observations they made. Now, there's also an identity. Folks, let me say, Paul, I'm going to throw this on you. I happen to go to my granddaughter's graduation, and I'm sitting there. Now, when you're at a graduation and you can't hear that well, you read the book, right? Because you're trying to check off how fast this exercise is going to go.
Right.
And you look at the names. Well, there's 2 designations at an undergraduate school: Bachelor of Science or Bachelor of Arts.
Right.
So now the first ones come up with a Bachelor of Science, and they're giving out the degrees. I'm saying, what the? And all of a sudden, it occurred to me, how many males do you think graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree?
What school was it?
St. Anselm's.
I don't know. Is it just one?
One.
Isn't St. Anselm's an all-girls school?
No. At one time, it was all boys.
Oh, is that
But
right?
now, they have a great nursing school, which I understand a bachelor's in science because of nursing. But exactly one male graduated with a bachelor's of science. I found that to be peculiar.
Right. Especially when a Bachelor of Arts is...
Well, in the Bachelor of Arts,
the
it was...
jobs behind it aren't
Well,
that...
the Bachelor of Arts was like a 60-40 split, but heavily female.
Yeah.
Okay? But just a thought of a Bachelor of Science degree, one male. And people talk about diversity and upward mobility and the glass ceiling. Well, I want to tell you, a lot of guys are being left behind in this world, and they better sharpen up because it's you know, when I went to BC, I went to Liberal Arts College, there was exactly one female in the entire Liberal Arts department, not in the university, because there was a nursing school and business school and school of education. That was a different demographic. But in the arts and science department, there was exactly one female, which is complete reverse now. Up
Right.
there. Now, here's the other thing, Paul. Think about this. Talk about crazy language and stuff. Why hasn't anybody attacked the concept of a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Science? They should call it bachelorette, shouldn't they? Folks, you think they should call it Bachelorette of Science and Bachelorette of Art? Or should we transgender it?
Don't get them going, because they'll
What
do
about-
it, because that'll be in the news tomorrow.
But think about it. I mean, I have no idea why that hasn't been attacked yet.
You can't even say freshman anymore, can you?
I don't know.
I think you have
I
to
am.
say fresh
Are you going to say
person.
freshman?
You have to say fresh person.
Really? Fresh person? Now, what about North Carolina? What about Obama, new dictator? Talk about the brink of insanity. You know what I'm referring to?
Talking about the gender bathrooms?
Yeah. What is that all about? Do you have any idea? Folks, you have any idea, any thoughts on this? I mean, if you wake up, I shouldn't say when you wake up, but when you're born, and someone ascertains that you have a certain plumbing, which determines whether you get a pink or a blue rug, right?
Yeah.
That what happened?
Yeah.
Do they have a new color now in between?
Purple and blue bonnets, right?
Is
that's
it purple now?
No, pink and blue bonnets is what they used to give out for, you know.
What do they
the
do now?
balloons would be pink if it was
Is
a
that
girl.
considered sexist and is that considered self-esteem or whatever?
They'll try to find a way to, yeah. I mean,
I hadn't thought about that.
it seems as though they don't want to ever have any distinction being made between who is a male and who is a female. And for me, that doesn't make a lot of sense because there is a very real difference, you know, and in a positive way. It's not in a negative sense. I mean, when you have your first child,
Yeah.
and somebody says it's a boy, you say great, and they say it's a girl, and you say great.
Either way.
You're right. I mean, what's the, you know,
Yeah.
and
Give out cigars and the whole shit. What's wrong with the cigars days? That's probably not a good thing to do nowadays. But here's what troubles me about this. You know, and it's a very small percentage of the population. It's like 0.3%, which is minuscule. And that
0.3% is what?
Huh?
0.3% what?
Of the whole pie.
Is what?
It's 30% of 1%
Are you saying that these are the folks that identify as?
that are certifiably transgender.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
And I empathize. You know, I can understand and empathize with that. But I don't understand why we have to take the other 99.9% and, you know, alter
Everything just to accommodate them.
to
yeah.
accommodate. Yeah,
That
what should
seems to
done.
be more of a design to hold everybody in check and to, you know,
Oh, really?
throw insanity into the equation.
Well, the fact that
Than it is
Bono
about
won't go to
anything.
North Carolina and Bruce Springsteen won't go to North Carolina drives me absolutely nuts.
right, but they'll go to you know, Qatar and do a concert in Qatar where
Oh, the
if
human
they-
rights abuses?
Yeah,
Oh, brutal.
if somebody was transgender over there, well, how would they treat
Take a
them?
look at with the money that
Right.
the
So
Clinton Clinton Foundation got all the from places like.
So that is all. What they're doing is petty nonsense, as far
How
as I'm
about
concerned.
Leonardo DiCaprio? He jumps on a private, listen to this, a private jet, flies 8,000 miles. Imagine what that footprint is, right? To pick up an award for a Greenie Award. And people say, I mean, this is why this is such a pivotal year. This is why people like Bernie Sanders on the left and Donald Trump on the right are going great guns. People are sick and tired of being buffaloed, lied to,
Right. Yep.
and the rest of it. Am I right or wrong here?
You know, and I'm not sure what we're going to end up with if Trump
I don't
ends up
either.
winning. But I'll tell you what. I know what I'm going to get if it's Clinton, and I knew what I would have got if it was Bush, and I didn't want either one of those things. So I'm, looking at this as I want to go for something where at least we have a chance. If we have Clinton, we're in big trouble. Big trouble. First of all, she'll appoint a liberal judge, and they'll immediately start dismantling the Constitution. And then two, they'll just continue the policies of the Barack Obama administration, which will be massively progressive and massively politically correct and massively confusing to
In other words,
the
insane.
populace. Insane, right.
Right. So, do you own a gun?
I do not.
I do not either. Nor do I care to.
And neither do I. No.
But I'll tell you, if I
I want the right to have one, though.
more importantly than that is as I was up in rural parts of this not New England, which is pretty condensed, rural by definition against Montana or Idaho, it would be jam-packed. But when you go up to rural areas late at night with these isolated homes in the woods, I want a bazooka, Forget about a gun. So it's an urban phenomenon. If you live out in the suburbs and you live up in the rural areas and countryside, you got to be out of your mind not to have defense because the big bad bears may come after you.
Well,
in the urban area, it's a little different. See, it's a different culture mindset.
Well, it really is. But I'll take it one step further. And
Yeah.
somebody once said this to me, and it just resonated so much. When every second counts, when you're being you're the victim of a crime, when every second counts,
Yeah.
the police are minutes away. Think about that.
Yeah.
And that's not meant to be detrimental or anti-police. Nothing of the sort. The fact of the matter is, most often the crime happens and then we try to chase the bad guy afterwards, as opposed to being able to stop the crime from happening. How do you stop the crime from happening? Be prepared to defend yourself.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yep.
I like that idea. But in any case, as it comes to guns and the rest of it, it's a right. Look I don't think people should be walking around, I was kidding you about bazookas, with bazookas, you know what I mean? But the right to protect yourself is inherent. And by the way, the dangerous people are the government.
Yes.
In the old Roman Empire, you could not go into Rome. You had to put your sword in what they call the armory. That's the word armory, Everybody had to disarm to go into where the government was. The government didn't want anybody there being able to overthrow them.
Right.
Or protect themselves against them. So I think it's psychologically a good idea to keep them in case you have to fight back on that note. So, that part of it. What other crazy things have been happening?
Oh, geez, I don't know. How
There's
about
a lot of them, aren't there?
How about the fact that throughout this campaign, all the Democrats have been talking about is how the Republicans are so they can't agree on anything and it's so disjointed, and now we have
Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders, who has essentially half of the Democrat vote, maybe even more in most places, right? If you were to eliminate the first 10 primaries and or have them over again, I think Bernie he'd be up to 55 or 56%.
Well, for God's sakes, the entire media is stacked against Bernie.
And he's still
they're
doing it.
lapdogs for Hillary Clinton. George Stephanopoulos, it's unconscionable that they allow George Stephanopoulos to be on ABC when he was nothing but a crony for the Clinton administration. That, that's unbelievable. By the way, speaking of that, you know who got herself in a... It's strange. Megyn Kelly, they have taken her to the woodshed because she didn't try to tattoo Clinton.
Oh, right. You mean
Trump.
Yeah.
Trump. And the irony of it all is that the one who's laughing is supposedly Roger Ailes, because now she can't command as big a package,
Right. Yeah, that's...
strange ironies of life, huh?
Yeah, she was supposedly this up-and-comer, and I'll tell you what, the way... It's interesting about the whole Trump phenomenon, because there was a time when the Republicans, including Fox News, would do anything to try to hurt him, and then when that didn't work, they would do anything to help him. And now, they're doing anything to hurt him again. They can't make up their mind how to handle this guy. Yeah. And anyway, that's...
If a local politician, unnamed, no gender, we're not going to talk about their sexual preference or any of those types of things, just an abstract member of a political party endorses someone and works avidly for someone that's an imperfect candidate, I think that says a lot about them. I cannot understand how people can go on the limb and support certain individuals for office. That's what the parties do unconsciously. I mean, in a perverse way, even though I disagree with them vehemently, I think that Mitt Romney at least did what I think, he didn't like him, and he spoke about it, and that's fine, okay? What bothered me was that's the same guy he sought an endorsement from, who pointed up a bunch of money.
They're hypocrites.
That's hypocrisy. But to walk down the line with somebody that you totally disagree with for party loyalty is why I think parties are a thing of the past, going back to our original point. And then I'll ask you the question of whether you think we'd be better off with more parties.
Well,
diffuse power.
I can never really answer that question, but I will say that your point is correct. That if what you just said is completely true, it's also true that how can you be in favor of anybody who will support a candidate because he is on the same side as you, in spite of his or her reputation, or
So character counts.
Ted Kennedy, Hillary Clinton, with all these things that are, they have these things that happened in their past, and the Democrats look the other way because they think that it's their best way to keep in power, and they're willing to sell their soul to the devil to keep the power, and that's all that matters to them, and that bothers me immensely.
That is the problem. And this whole thing about maintaining power, so that these folks, our audience, hopefully our audience, people in the city of Lynn that trying to get up every day, cut a living, raise their kids as best they can with a struggle, are being told how and what to do and keep your mouth shut on top of it.
Right.
I mean, that's pretty
Shut up and pay your
insulting, isn't it?
taxes.
Yeah, pay your taxes. Only 47% of the people in the United States pay for the tax anyhow. And by the way, did you know, we only have a few minutes left, but we're going to do a did you know it. Did you know that 95 million eligible workers in the United States aren't working?
Right, that's almost a third of the population.
Yeah, well, no way. That's a third of the population. There's more than that because a lot of people aren't old enough to work, and a lot of people are too old to work. So of the eligible population, probably 50%.
Right.
Okay, so that's it. Did you know that the national debt has more than doubled under the present administration?
I did know that.
Yeah.
And it's going to hit 20. It's going to hit 20 trillion before he steps
very
up.
soon.
And did you know that that's the least of our worries, because the unfunded liabilities in federal, state, and local government, and that's pensions and whatnot, is like something like $200 trillion.
Try and pay on that.
200 trillion.
You know who's going to have to pay that? My grandkids. I feel bad. And I enjoyed it. Did you know?
You enjoyed what, the pension?
Yeah. Be honest with you.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
Did you know that the United States is ranked 17th in educational performance and 24th in literacy? We spend about $600 billion.
Right. We should be number one in all of that.
We were.
Right.
Not too long ago.
Right, back in the 50s probably, right?
Yeah. So what has happened? See, we have a cultural
It's a
problem.
liberalization of society.
What we have is we have a media that is uneducated, has no clue, and they're making pronouncements. They have never been fair about the word vetting. Let me use vetting, folks. And we got a couple of minutes, and let's vet it out. Vetting is to make careful and critical examination of something. Do you think anything's been vetted? You think that the Clintons have been vetted? Oh, yes,
No.
we've been thoroughly vetted. No, you haven't. Because the press didn't vet you.
Right.
The Obama, was he vetted?
No, he was vetted in the political sense in that we need this guy because then we'll get whatever we want.
Okay,
So then they said, don't let anybody else vet him because we already know who we want.
Paul, you know, we're about to wrap up. Folks, this is our first run back in. We'd love to hear from you, right?
Yeah.
How do we get to
You can go to the website, lctv.com. I think / frankly speaking might help. But if you go to the website, I'm sorry, the advertisement in the paper, and you go to lyntv.org /shows / frankly speaking, or if you go to Facebook page, so it's facebook.com / frankly speaking in Lynn.
Ooh. This is going to be an evolving situation, folks. I hope you enjoyed our first foray back.
Yeah, we got to get back into the groove a little bit.
We will.
Yep, absolutely.
We will. And we're planning on, I think Jim Cardell stopped by. He's anchoring to be on. And I'm sure we'll be doing some of the local political things that have taken place.
Yeah, a lot of local stuff. We got a new state rep, Danny Cahill.
Oh, yeah.
We've got lots of things happening in the city, and we want to get into some of the local issues. And I'm sure Mr. Arcone is going to want to know what they're going to do with Boston Street, and I get all these questions when I'm out in the community.
One question I have for you as we close. As the executive director, is that your title, of GLIS?
Yes.
Is there any force coming from you from the state or the federal government to change the designation of your toilets?
No, I haven't heard anything yet.
What the heck does this trans mean? How come it's always guys going into girls' bathrooms? It's never girls coming into men's bathrooms.
I don't know. Let me just say that I fully appreciate the confusion that some people have with their identity and all that. But
I hope you're not confused.
But the problem is bigger than that.
It is. Good night, and have a great, great evening.